World War on the home front. The First World War had an enormous impact on U.S. politics, culture, and society. Advocates of female suffrage successfully linked the patriotic efforts of women in the war with voting rights. The strategy was highly effective, and in 1920, the U.S. Congress ratified the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed women the right to vote. Others were not so lucky. Hypervigilance on the home front led to spontaneous outbreaks of violence against groups whose loyalty to the United States was considered suspect. German Americans, labor activists, suffragists, immigrants, African Americans, and socialists were subjected to threats, harassment, imprisonment, and physical violence. So we've seen a lot of this in each of the war. During World War II, when Pearl Harbor happened, a lot of Asian Americans took the brunt of that because people were afraid, people were angry with what happened, so they extended that hatred towards all of the Asians that they saw in America. They didn't trust anyone. Same thing with World War I. Any German American living in America at this time, they were targeted with hate, with distrust. Okay, so we didn't trust any single German, even though they were not, people in America were really not participating in fighting for Germany. The consequences of World War I. The experience of the First World War was traumatizing. The so-called civilized Western democracies had plunged into a ferocious and deadly conflict with uncertain origins and unsatisfying outcome. As a result, many became disillusioned with the values and ideals of American political democracy and consumer culture. The generation that came of the age during the First World War in the Roaring '20s is known as the Lost Generation. On the political front, a debate erupted between President Woodrow Wilson and his supporters who sought an expanded role for the United States in world affairs, and isolationists in Congress who feared becoming embroiled in future European conflicts. So because of all this happened, we were a little fearful about getting into the issues that had to do with countries across the pond or across the Atlantic Ocean. We didn't want to get in this again. Though Wilson was foremost advocate of the League of Nations, an international peacekeeping organization, the United States never officially joined the League due to isolationist opposition. So there were also those people, there were one side, those people that were fearful of going into war again or having any ties with countries that were in war. But then on the other side, there were people who didn't want to be isolated. They wanted America to be strong and they wanted America to expand. So what do you think? You can answer these questions through Google Classroom, or you can answer them on Khan Academy. So why was the president unable to keep the United States out of the war? So think about that. Think about some of those reasons. What were some positive effects of the war? There were a lot of negative things, but there were some great positive things. Think of what happened to women. What were some great things for women? And then what were the negative effects for some war? There is a lot more negatives than positives. So write some of those down. And then should the United States have joined the League of Nations? What do you think? Should they have joined this what it's called a League of Nations, where they would stay out of war and stay out of other countries' business and become that isolated country again? What do you think?